Hi, this is A New Nigeria with Wale Oluwade. This is your current affairs program where we critically examine those strategic issues that bedevil Nigeria's developmental aspirations and boldly offer simple, practical, but audacious ideas on building the Nigeria of our collective desires. On today's episode of this program, I'll take a brief analysis, or I'll give a brief explanations concerning three topical issues amongst a myriad in our policy. But before then, I'll take this short break, and when I get back, we'll get right into the presentation. Please stay with me. Welcome back. So the first issue I'll be commenting on briefly is the alleged corruption case involving former governor of Kogi State, Alhaji Yahaya Bello. On this program, or on this platform, I had passionately, objected to the drama, the cat and mouse, very annoying, drama that had ensued between former Governor Yahaya Bello and the anti-corruption agency, the EFCC, and for months, this guy was, he was even declared wanted by the EFCC. He would stage a visit to the EFCC and then he would go back home, or they would storm his residence in Abuja, and then the current governor, Usman Ododo, would come there and whisk him, away. I mean, several court days, he would refuse to show up in court, and this had gone on for months, and so I'd vehemently, demanded on this platform, that the authorities should not allow that to continue, because it sends a terrible signal to the rest of society, that we have different laws, for different people, and that should never, be allowed to subsist. So I'm glad, as most of you are aware, that, and as you can see on your screen, currently, former Governor Yahaya Bello is going through the legal process. He has appeared in court. He has pled not guilty. He's been remanded in a prison, in correctional, facility, and all of that. So that is how, a society that operates under the rule of law, that is how it is. Nobody, from the president, to the lowest person, should be above the law. If you have immunity because of the office you occupy, president, vice president, governor, deputy governor, when you leave office and you are alleged to have committed a crime, you should face, the legal process. That is what happens, in decent, civilized society that operates under the rule of law. That's the first issue I'm dealing with. So would only hope, that it will not just be, a rigmarole, that the due process of law would allow, to flourish, and that if former Governor Yahaya Bello is found guilty or culpable or guilty or convicted by the courts, he should pay for it. That's the way to go. Now, secondly, my second issue I'm dealing with on today's episode is my thoughts on the ongoing tax reform bills debate. It's been everywhere. So here are my thoughts. Now, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration at inception had set up the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform, headed by the brilliant and calm Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, a tax expert. Now, upon conclusion of their job, they did submit 4 bills, draft bills, at the National Assembly, especially, and after that passed second reading, of course, in record time, there was uproar across the country, particularly from northern region, with governors, senators, traditional leaders from that region, that is the north, calling for a halt to the process, stating that this entire tax reform bills, they are inimical to their socio-economic interests. They equally allege that only Lagos and Rivers states will be main beneficiaries if passed. Now, I don't entirely agree with the positions of the North, but wholly understand the reasons for the pushback. Now, I present my views, on the proposed bills as follows, under 4 main subheadings. Number 1, the sudden death approach. Why must the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu government always choose to introduce policy reforms by a sudden death approach and my way or go to hell mindset? I don't get it. Aren't we in a democracy? Can't the government even pretend that Nigerians have a say in how they are governed? This government removed petroleum motor spirit subsidy, otherwise called petrol subsidy. And by doing that, it sent the economy on a downward spiral. Now, still reeling from its disastrous effects, the government again floated the naira against the almighty US dollars, and everything went out of control and is still in a state of crisis. Why, for God's sake, would you do that? Now, what are reforms? Reforms simply are about change. I teach change management strategies. So change can be evolutionary or revolutionary. Both are desirable depending on the situation or circumstance. But there are collateral implications or consequences. Therefore, when change is bound to impact people substantially, either positively or negatively, you take good care and time to educate, inform, enlighten, and disabuse the minds of the people from the perception, of ulterior motives by those who are catalyzing, or instigating the change or the reforms. Was this done in this instance? No. So I agree with the northern governors, senators, and traditional institutions. What is the need for this rush? What's the need for the rush? There's no need for this rush. However long it takes for a larger section of the entire Nigerian population to buy into these reforms, so be it. That's number 1, premise. Number 2 is what I've called the cake analogy. And what does this mean? I will adopt the style of the elders, and notably Professor Chinua Achebe, one of my greatest Nigerians ever, to reinforce this point, that is the cake analogy. And I'm still speaking about my views on the tax reform bills, brouhaha. I said I was going to talk on 4 premises. Number 1 is what I called no need for rush, and number 2 is the cake analogy. In the last month or so, the entire nation, or let me say, most of us who have access to the media, anybody who have, opportunity to comment on this, we have all been embroiled in this heated argument over the sharing of a poorly baked and insufficient cake rather than being invested in the baking of a far more bigger and more nutritious cake, and perhaps accompanied with chocolate drinks or fruit juices to go along with it. How more irresponsible can we be as a nation? After almost 2 years in office, that is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, what, in substantial terms, have they achieved? Practically and strategically speaking, what have they done about, growing the Nigerian economy holistically? What has the federal government done, about electricity availability, ramping up this to minimum 10,000 gigawatts or megawatts, 10,000 megawatts, that is distribution by 2027. What have they done to achieve this? What has the federal government done to eradicate poverty from Nigeria, with now over 165 million suffering from acute hunger, beyond the tokenisms of palliatives that the government is notorious for? What has the federal government done in concrete terms, not empty platitudes, about the continuing risks and menace of the 20 million plus out-of-school children? Nothing. What has the federal government done deliberately about general and youth unemployment disaster? Because that is the recruitment ground for, the various insecurities we face as a nation. What has the federal government done about industries shutting down due to extremely high cost of production? What has the president done about developing a 30-year integrated national economic development master plan and backing this up with an act to ensure future governments, both federal and states, won't embark on a wild goose adventure as we're accustomed to in Nigeria? So to all of these questions I've asked, the federal government, in my humble opinion, has done pretty much nothing. So in a depressed economy with hyperinflation, currently pushing north of 34%, loss of purchasing power, pervasive hunger, mass poverty and misery across the land, rather than focus on the big picture of growing the economy from the bottom up through some of the initiatives I mentioned, rather, what do we have? Nigerians are instead bickering over an economy that has lost half of its value. 2015, when President Muhammadu Buhari took over, Nigeria's economy was number one in Africa, worth about $500 billion US. Today, Nigeria's economy, the GDP of Nigeria, is less than $300 billion US. That's what we're bickering over. Now, moving backwards from first position to fourth in Africa in the last 8 years, I say once again, we're truly a special breed of people. Now, my third premise, perhaps the most contentious, aspect of the bill is about the VAT sharing formula, with the bill, being proposed, suggesting a new sharing formula as follows. Now, the bill proposes changes to the distribution formula. The current distribution formula, the federal government has share of the VAT revenues. Federal government, is reduced from 15 to 10. Currently it's 15, so the bill proposes to reduce it to 10. State governments share 50%. The bill being proposed, suggests to move it to 55. That's additional 5%. Local governments will remain at 35%. Now, why the contention of the North and the states? Here it is. Now, VAT revenues, is shared on the basis of equality, population, and derivation. So this new bill proposes that, number one, on equality, in the current sharing formula for VAT, the bill proposes to reduce the sharing based on equality of all the states, which currently is 50%, to reduce it to 20%. Number two, population-based, the current sharing formula, is 30%. The new bill proposes to reduce it to 20%. The biggest one, where the contention is on equality and derivation. Now, on derivation, the bill, proposes the current sharing is 20% to increase it to 60%. So, my point, why won't the governors react as they did? If they didn't, they would have failed their people. I am not a fan of the governors. If you follow this program, you know I'm not a fan of most of our governors. But on this point, I support them 100%. You can't take away the source of their revenues, and expect them, not having been duly, consulted, not to react. They will, and I support them on that. And lastly, number 4, my premise. There is the little matter of this agency called Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation Committee. I wish to ask Mr. Taiwo Oyedele and the federal government, is it the duty of a presidential committee to arbitrarily, as it were, amend or alter the fiscal provisions or the revenue sharing formula as stipulated by the 1999 Constitution? RAMFAC is an agency duly recognized by the Constitution of Nigeria in Section 153, subsection 1. So I wonder where the committee got this power from, that is to alter the sharing formula as stated in the Constitution. Even the president does not have such powers. So in view of these 4 observations that I've highlighted, my counsel to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, let proper consultations be done and let serious debates be had at both the National Assembly and at different, various fora. I must say, as aware publicly as I am, it was when Mr. Tawo Udele and a few other people came on a TV platform to like a public debate that I was fully aware of the major highlights of these bills. If as aware as I am, that was my first time, then imagine the rest, of Nigeria. And like I said, we are in a democracy. We are not in a dictatorship. The people, you must get the people's buy-in, before you make changes that impact on their lives. You increased electricity tariff through the sudden death approach. You've done a lot of changes that has thrown the economy on a downward spiral, like I said. This is not going to go that way, and that's my take. Now, I'll take this short break, and when I return, I'll comment on my third and final issue for today. Please stay with me. Welcome back. So my third and final issue I'll be looking at or offering an opinion today is the University College Hospital Ibadan and the Ibadan Airport project announced by the Oyo State government. Now, recently, the first teaching hospital in Nigeria, established in 1957 by an act of the British Parliament, indeed, once the pride of the African continent, has since become a ghost of its once illustrious pedigree. The hospital has been bedeviled by a dearth of skilled personnel, i.e. doctors, nurses, lab technicians, radiographers, and all of that, due to the alarming migration crisis we currently, face. Also, the challenge of inadequacy of modern equipment and facilities that you would expect, to find, in a national hospital of similar caliber. Such equipment as MRIs, that's magnetic resonance imaging, machines, CT scanners, hemodialysis machines, defibrillators, name it. Most of those are not in the hospital, and even when they're there and they break down, like machines are meant to break down or are expected to break down, they're not easily replaceable due to cost of replacement or even maintenance costs. But all of these challenges pales in comparison to the problem of electricity shortages or scarcity occasioned by the spike in the cost of electricity tariffs, due to the Nigerian Electricity Regulation Commission, which recently increased electricity tariffs from 66 naira to 206 naira kilowatts per hour. Now, this has led to repeated disconnections by the Ibadan DISCO, that is Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company, which allege that the University College Hospital Ibadan owes over 390 million naira in unpaid electricity bills. This is the outstanding from a 3 billion naira debt carried over from 2019. Now, can you imagine that it is in the midst of this debacle with the UCH and the Ibadan DISCO that the federal government, because the University College Hospital is owned by the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Health. Now, in the midst of the crisis, facing UCH, and I must say other specialist hospital owned, by the Ministry of Health, Federal Ministry of Health, it is in the midst of this crisis that the federal government is constructing a 15 trillion naira coastal highway with a 1.07 trillion paid upfront early this year as mobilization. It was in this situation also, the federal government paid 15 billion naira to make up, in addition to 7 billion earlier paid, to complete, and in record time, the vice president's official mansion in Abuja. that has since been completed in record time. 15 billion was earmarked and was paid to complete the vice president's mansion in record time. It's since been, commissioned. Priority. It was also in this, furthermore, it was in this situation or during this crisis when Nigeria paid, the federal government paid huge sums to purchase SUVs, sports utility vehicles, for National Assembly leadership and its members. Worse, the one that rankles, it was during this that the president bought a fairly used Boeing jet at, some allege, over 150 billion naira. There are no official records, but some have alleged that estimated value of that aircraft is 150 billion naira. But we have our first premier health institution languishing. You see the pictures, you can see some of the pictures where the institution is almost derelict as it is currently. So, in any case, why should the president care about the state of the UCH or any other hospital? The president has his doctors in the United Kingdom or Paris, where he receives world-class health care regularly. And he is not the only one. That was the practice with his predecessors, notably the late Alhaji Umaru Yar'Adua and the most notorious President Muhammadu Buhari, who spent months most times in the UK, with his doctors. Now, if the federal government is nonchalant to the plight of the UCH, or indeed any federal hospital, you may excuse the federal government for being far away in Abuja. But my concern here, or the focus of this intervention, how about the Oyo State government? In the midst of the brouhaha over electricity bill indebtedness of the UCH, guess what happened? The state government of Oyo State, under Governor Seyi Makinde, in August of this year, 2024, announced at a public event its award of the contract for the expansion of the Ibadan airport, now called or rechristened Samuel Adoke Akintola Airport. And in the words of the governor during the award ceremony, the objective of the expansion project is to attain international status. And then he continues, this is to open up the state as a regional hub for tourists, investors, businesses, and so on. One can always find excuses to do anything, especially government. But this is quite unfortunate, to say the least, and putting it mildly. Because all things considered, I'll give Governor Seyi Makinde pass mark in his stewardship of the state of Oyo State so far. But you can fool some of the people sometimes, but you certainly can't fool all of us all the time. So I am not fooled by this gimmick of the expansion project being about tourists and investors and businesses. That's bunkum. Pardon my French. Now, let me cut to the chase and say it as it is. This airport expansion project, at the whopping cost of 41 billion naira, and to be completed in a year, is only intended to cater to the comfort and pleasures of you, Governor Seyi Makinde, and your fellow elites. I'm also involved. I'm also included. Because as of February last year, I had reason to visit Oyo State, Ibadan, and I used that airport. This project has got absolutely nothing to do with investors or tourists or anything of the sort. It has absolutely nothing to do with the welfare and security of the generality of the people of Oyo State or Nigerians at large. Except you can show me the projected revenues from the airport expansion project, which indicates exactly how, on completion, the touted tourists, investors, businesses will contribute, to state and national economy from the use of the airport. And this has now become typical with most of our governors. Their topmost priorities are the issues, that are of personal benefits to themselves and the elites. As I speak here, almost all the states have built or are planning to build airports simply to satisfy their personal comforts and pleasures. Never mind, almost all of this, the ones that are built, the airports that are built, like the one in Ebonyi, the one my governor built in Ogun State, and several other places. Never mind that these built, the ones who are already built, are in a state of disuse and are rotting away with scarce resources tied down for nothing. The money that could have been used to better the lives of the people by being invested in education, in healthcare, in creating jobs, and in mass housing developments. Now, what makes the Ibadan Airport project rankle the more? Ibadan Airport is a mere 20 minutes from the Muritala Mohammed Airport in Lagos. I know, even last year when I used the Ibadan Airport, when I wanted to return to Abuja, the particular airline that picked me from Ibadan, the airport in Ibadan, first went to Lagos before we, picked additional, passengers before we proceeded to Abuja. From Ibadan Airport to the Muritala Mohammed, either MM1 or MM2 is barely 20 minutes. Before they even announce, safety precaution or whatever in the air, you're almost disembarking, into MMA in Lagos. But Governor Seyi Makinde, like other governors, don't want to endure the unnecessary stress or hassles of having to go to Lagos to connect international flights, but simply have one, built in his, front yard. That's the mindset of our leaders. Anyway, here's my simple suggestion to you, Governor Seyi Makinde. Please approach the Federal Ministry of Health with a sound and economically viable outline business case, otherwise called OBC, for the acquisition of the UCH under a joint venture agreement with the federal government of Nigeria. Rather, do an outright acquisition. Furthermore, you can discuss, the political and legal implications with both the president and the attorney general of the federation, to get their buy-in and for greater effect. Because if the president or attorney general, buys into this suggestion, then it's a slam dunk. Now, I say this because of your antecedent in resolving the LAUTECH, that is Ladoke Akintola University of Technology situation, where in the early days of your first term and demonstrating great foresight and leadership, you dealt with the perennial crisis of funding and management bedeviling that university, by entering into an agreement with Osun State under the supervision of the National Universities Commission. What happened? Oyo State took over full ownership of the university, that is Ladoke Akintola University of Technology, located in Ogbomoso under Oyo State, while Osun State took over the College of Health Sciences located in Osogbo. Now, once that was done, the issues of funding and the management crisis bedeviling LAUTECH was resolved. Nobody has heard about, funding challenges and all of that. Was solved permanently. That is the sort of great leadership that I expect from you now, Governor Seyi Makinde. And this is what I urge you to replicate in the UCH situation. Remember, and I repeat, that UCH once used to be the pride of Nigeria, catering to the health needs of thousands from Africa and the rest of the world. In the interim, Governor Makinde, you can demonstrate your government's seriousness and readiness by committing 10 billion naira for the installation of alternative off-grid provision, i.e. of solar electricity, around of about 5 megawatts for the UCH, pending the approval of the JV or acquisition bid. This 10 billion naira for the 5 megawatt solar electricity provision could be deemed a down payment or loan to be repaid by the federal government. What does that mean? If the joint venture bid from the state government is approved, it will have that 10 billion will be a down payment. And if it is not approved by the federal government, it will be a loan, that will have solved the problem of electricity in the UCH, and the federal government will have to pay, or your state back. Now, why do I care so much about the University College Hospital in Ibadan? Number one, I am a Nigerian, and I care about this country passionately. I am interested, that this country works for all of us, regardless of class or status. I strongly believe that best-in-class healthcare shouldn't be the exclusive rights for the elites who can afford to travel abroad. Second, and a more personal reason why I'm interested in the UCH electricity situation. I was born at this once great healthcare institution. I'm a product of the University College Hospital, Ibadan. So I have more than a passing interest in goings-on there. Also, my father's house is barely 10 minutes from that hospital, and my primary school was adjacent to it, and I will forever cherish the memories of my siblings, myself, and my schoolmates running around this hospital's doctors and other staff quarters, fishing or climbing mango or fruit trees, the kind of stuff young boys, do. So I urge you, Governor Yahaya A, to give this suggestion serious consideration, Your Excellency. I do like you. You seem to me like the sort of leader we would need. Never mind the drama or the stunts you and the G5 group did, that has led to the killing of the PDP or the loss of the PDP last year. I would wink over that, if you do this. So if you pull this off, you may go down in Yoruba political history as someone who is mentioned in the same sentence as Alhaji Lateef Jakonde, former governor of Lagos State, Chief Adekunle Ajasin, former governor of Ondo State, Chief Bola Ige, former governor of Oyo State, and of course, Olabisi Onabanjo, former governor of Ogun State. Those are great men who served Yoruba, states, honorably and patriotically, and their names are cast in gold. They didn't measure up to Awolowo. I doubt if anybody can actually measure up to that man. But at least, if you do the right thing, your name could be mentioned amongst this list of great men. I wish you all the very best. Thank you. Now, those are the issues for consideration on today's episode of the program. I hope it made sense to you. Like I always say on this program, change requires action. Positive change requires positive action. I believe in a new Nigeria, and it is possible only if we all do, what we have to do to build a greater and prosperous country. Before I round up, let me seize this opportunity to once again solicit for your support through patronage or by sponsoring this program or advertising on the platform. This program, I am humbled to say, I believe strongly, is getting the attention of those in the highest echelons of our government, and for good reason. I'm not a politician. I don't play politics here. I address the salient issues that will lead, to the progress of our country. I criticize, but I also offer, suggestions or solutions. And I don't condemn. I offer constructive criticisms. So I urge you, reach out to me through my YouTube or X handle or TikTok, and let's see how we can partner together. That's the end of the program today. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, my TikTok and X platform. You can watch the full edition of this particular presentation there. Drop me your comments, follow me, and I would like to hear from you. And I'll see you next time. My name remains Olawale Oluwade. Bye for now.